and welcome to part 3 of the Pinterest for Business teaching series. We're going to be covering attracting your target audience today. So we're still in baseline mode, building your baseline, and we're just going to dig a little bit deeper into some of those aspects that we have been talking about in parts 1 and 2 of building that good foundation. And part of that, building that good foundation, is knowing who's in your target audience, knowing who you're trying to reach. I know we've touched on this before, and we keep kind of talking about it. Some of this information may feel like a repeat, but we're really, remember I said in the very first in part 1 that we were sort of touching on everything, and then we were going to dig a little bit deeper. So if it feels like a little bit of a repeat, it's mostly just for emphasis, but hopefully after this segment, we're really going to finish up the emphasis on the baseline building and move into maintenance strategies in part 4. Okay, so first, it's important to realize that not everybody is in your target audience. It's really, really important to have a detailed concept of who your ideal buyer is, so that you know who you're trying to reach on Pinterest. If you don't know who your ideal buyer is, who you're trying to reach, you can't really be certain that you're setting up the right board topics or pitting the right kinds of content, because then you're just pinning for this arbitrary person. You need to be pinning for a specific model of who you are trying to reach. And yes, there's going to be variations on that person, but we need to get sort of a general idea of who's going to buy your products. Who are you marketing to? If you've never sat down and analyzed who your ideal buyer or target market is, you really need to do it. You really need to do it now during this baseline building, because being able to paint a picture of who you're marketing to is integral to selling anything. This is not just a Pinterest thing. It's integral to selling anything. But it's really, really important on Pinterest because of all the supplementary content that you need to have in order to attract your target audience. So who is your ideal buyer? Probably what you think of when you think of creating this ideal buyer profile is maybe their age, their location, their gender. Often you'll see things like if you've ever done any research on how to do your ideal buyer profile, it might tell you to think of like their income level, their education, if they're married or single, they have kids, no, what's their culture like, that kind of thing. And those are all really great things to do. But those are all really like cut and dry factual type things. So I want to challenge you to also, when you're doing this ideal buyer analysis, to think about maybe the not so overt characteristics of your ideal buyer. Maybe the things you need to dig a little bit deeper than just the surface information about this person. So think about their personality. What's their attitude like? What's their outlook on life? What kind of values do they have? Their interests, their hobbies. What do they do in their free time? Their lifestyle. Are they vegan? Are they are they a health food, fitness guru, or are they somebody that likes to veg out on Netflix and eat potato chips all day long? I mean, really figure out what they do with their life, how they behave. In addition, for your all's businesses, for your niche, personal style and interior decorating style is going to be huge. You need to have that down, because you don't want to be selling shabby chic painted furniture and you're attracting people who like industrial type of decorating style because your supplementary content isn't on point. So if you are, for instance, painting things and you paint things with a shabby chic sort of feel, you use chalk paint a lot, that kind of thing, you probably wouldn't have supplementary boards that are about, industrial type kitchens with the black cabinets and the brushed metal and the exposed brick, because that's not your target market. That's not their interior decorating style. That's not their personal style, probably. So it's really important to know that, the person that would buy your shabby chic furniture, what kind of style do they have? What color palettes do they like? What do they dress like? That kind of stuff. So go beyond sort of the surface level, age, location, gender, and really get to know the personality of that person. You're basically building a story character. All right. So once we know who our ideal audience is, our target audience, how do we get them to our Pinterest page? That's what this whole section is about. So I know, number one, SEO. We just did a whole entire section on SEO. Module 2 is all about SEO. If you still have questions about SEO, please reach out to me, comment on the video. We'll talk about it, because if you don't have your SEO down pat, it's a really big chunk of getting people to even find you. So SEO is important for getting found. The rest of this stuff is important for being appealing and attracting. So SEO is great and it's really important to get found. But if you get found and you're not appealing to your target audience, then SEO is not going to save you. They're not going to stick around if they're not interested in what you have to share. So the other big parts of this is, to get them to your page and to get them to stick around, is content appeal, visual appeal, and then your level of activity. So let's talk about content appeal. There's a couple questions to ask yourself when you're evaluating the appeal of the content that you're sharing. So the first question you would ask is, do you have enough quality? Before you pin anything, you need to ask, is this relevant? Is it relevant to my target market? Are they going to be interested in this? And then, if it is relevant, ask, is it instructive or informative? Is it inspirational or is it interesting? If it's not really providing any value, then it's probably not worth pinning. And by value, I mean those things that that Pinterest users really latch onto. Remember the 3 I's: inspiration, ideas, and information. And that's really what we're rehashing here with these questions. Is it providing me any information? Is it making me feel good or providing any inspiration or sparking an idea? Or is it just interesting, unique, that kind of thing? If you're unsure, just skip it. Just skip that pin. You don't need to pin it. There are plenty of other pins in the pool you can choose from. So first ask, do you have enough quality? Then secondly, you want to ask, do you have enough quantity? Remember we talked about minimum numbers, 12 to 18 supplementary boards, at least 25 pins on each board before you toggle it public. Remember your minimum numbers, because if you just don't have enough bulk there, then it's not very appealing because it feels empty. And empty can be construed as boring. And just not, or that you're just very inactive and they're not going to stick around because you don't have enough to share. And thirdly, you want to ask, do you have enough variety? Limited variety is okay if you have a really, really, really specific target market, or a very specific niche. But understand that your growth may be slower because you simply just don't have the volumes of people in your little circle of the world, the market. Because you're so narrowed down and so targeted, you have a very limited amount of people that are interested in what you have. So if you're very, very specific, you might have a limited variety of content, and that's okay. But if you don't have a really specific target market and it's broad enough, that it encompasses maybe several different styles or several different types of people, maybe not just one specific type of person, but maybe you have 2 separate target markets. You need to make sure you have enough variety that appeals to all those factors. All right. So a content quality pro tip. When you're looking at pins, and we're talking about this whole segment is about the type of pin that you are adding, because that's what all the content is on Pinterest is pins. You need to briefly skim those pin captions to make sure that what the words say in the caption actually matches what the image portrays. So, for instance, if a picture of a wreath hanging on a door has the caption like, try this amazing method to lose 10 pounds in 2 days, well, that obviously doesn't match up. So, you don't want to pin that pin. But if you're really in love with that wreath and you just think this is the most beautiful wreath, maybe it's Easter or Christmas and you're making a collection of Christmas decorations and this is the perfect wreath for your door and you just want to pin it because it's so beautiful. If you're a super go-getter, you can always click through to the pin to see where it goes. If it goes to a web page that's actually relevant to that wreath, just change the caption because somebody changed it to be spammy, but to the weight loss thing. But if it goes to some miracle drug website and they are using the picture as clickbait to get all these saves because nobody's reading the caption, then obviously you want to skip that pin. Find another wreath. Okay. So it's also important to know what kind of content performs well on Pinterest. So tutorials, tips, tricks, or life hacks, even if it's just a small little blurb, like you actually put the tip on the pin and you don't have to click away from Pinterest to read that tip, that does really well. Inspirational, motivational, or funny quotes, content that gives you a solution to a common problem as a quick fix, and it's promises quick results, are very popular as well. So like how to clean your house in just 15 minutes a day, how to lose 10 pounds in 2 days, that kind of thing. Challenges are really popular. So like a 31-day organization challenge, or you see challenges a lot with like fitness and stuff too. But not all of this is going to be relevant to the kind of content you should be pinning. But these are just the kind that do well on Pinterest. Roundups and links. So like if they links to a blog post that might be 15 ways to decorate your mantle this Christmas or something like that, a photo collection or a roundup link blog post, those do well. Infographics do well, but the ones that do the best are the ones that have not very much text. They're more photo heavy than they are text heavy. So infographics do good. Lists are always a bonus, or always a plus. People love those. And emotive photos. So what I mean by emotive photos are the inspirational, the beautiful, the photos that make you feel something. All right. So then once we've, made sure that we have the right kind of content, we're, pulling in content that does well, different types of variety, got the quality, got the quantity. The next thing to think about is the visual appeal of that content. And the visual appeal of the content as it is grouped into a board. So one place, because Pinterest is so visual, one place that visual appeal is important is the board covers. So you want to ask yourself, do you have cohesive and branded board covers? We already talked about this a little bit in previous modules, but I want to give you some examples. This picture right here is a bad example of board covers, but it's a good example of why you should have at least have multiple pins on those boards before you make them public. Because you can see over here that this board has literally one pin on it. So it's a big gray block with one pin. This one has 4, so it has blank spaces all in it. So I like to have 25 because once I actually click this board, I want to see if there's plenty of content. But you absolutely want to make sure you have at least enough pins to fill out this board cover here. Sorry. So the other bad thing about this is that it's just messy. They haven't set board covers for these, hence sort of the collage type look here. So when you do set a board cover, it should be one big picture like this, and then you'll have the two most other recent pins over here. You shouldn't get this where you have like this mashup of all these different images. That just makes it look messy, and it's not a good example. So what is a good example? What should our board covers look like? Well, we want something like this, something that is all the tones. Now this one does, she hasn't set board covers for a few, or maybe she couldn't find a good board cover, but at least the pins that are showing here all match sort of the same lightness and tone and color scheme. It at least doesn't look as messy. It kind of blends in a little bit. I would prefer to have one big image here, but sometimes you just can't, and that's okay. You just do what you can. But overall, we have a nice, bright, light, dreamy, airy, pretty type board covers that all have the same about the lightness. They're all that medium lightness and sort of the same color palettes of the grays and the muted neutral colors with a couple pops of color here and there. This is beautiful. This is fine. This is nice, well put together, pulled together, cohesive board covers. What I mean when I mean cohesive. May not necessarily be on brand. I don't know what her brand colors are, but this is at least cohesive. This one is one that I did. The previous one was one I just found on Pinterest somewhere. This one is one that I did for a client 6 months to a year ago. And she makes coastal nautical themed party favors. So she is an example of somebody who has a very tight niche. She only does coastal things. So her supplementary content is all focused around nautical, coastal themed things, not necessarily parties, but all the nautical stuff to go along and complement her nautical and coastal theme party favors and gifts. She does little gifts too. But this is an example of cohesive and branded. So because she is a nautical coastal themed seller, her colors are all the nautical and coastal themed colors, the blues and the grays and the whites, colors you would see in beach houses, things like that. So all her board covers pull those colors in. Her brand colors are represented throughout here, and they're all very cohesive and pulled together. Again, that same sort of tone and lightness. You can't always get it perfect. This one, for instance, doesn't fit quite as well, but it does at least have the blues, and it's still bright. It's not super dark. Still all sort of flows together. All right, so I wanted to show you those examples of board covers being cohesive and visually appealing. The next question you want to ask yourself when you're assessing your visual appeal is, are you using images that are clear? As in, they're not grainy, they're high quality, they were taken with a good camera, and they're not blurry. Now, if you have a little bit of artistic blur somewhere, like the background's blurred out, or you're doing artistic blur, that's okay. I don't recommend doing that on all of your pens. A little bit's fine, but you don't want to go overboard. But I'm talking about that blurriness that's just a bad picture. You want to make sure your pictures are all high quality. You want to make sure they're well edited. So your white balance, your contrast, your color saturation, your light balance, your tone, the composition of the photo, everything is well edited and put together. Your images should be taller than they are wide. They get more feed space. They're easily more noticeable when people are scrolling through their search results or their smart feed. It's just a fact of Pinterest that tall pins are what they want, and that they perform better. And also, you will make sure your images are stirring emotion. They're intriguing to look at. I use the word dreamy a lot, that bright, airy, dreamy kind of thing. They're inspiring, or they're modern. Even if you're doing pictures of a dark industrial kitchen, it looks it stirs some emotion in the person that's interested in that. It looks like something they would like or something they would enjoy. You want to make sure it's not just a blah picture. Some visual characteristics that tend to entice more clicks and saves. So we already said vertical photos. Aspect ratios of 2 to 3 or 4 to 5 perform best. So when you are taking your pictures of your products, you want to keep in mind that you always want to take a vertical photo, or edit a photo or resize a photo so it is vertical, taller than it is wide. No human faces or faces not looking directly at viewers. This isn't going to be a huge problem for you all as furniture sellers unless for you for some reason had somebody modeling with your furniture. But typically with supplementary content or any pins at all, pins without faces get 23% more repins. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Non-white backgrounds and reduced negative space performs better. You want less than 40% of background negative space. That performs the best. When you get to be more than 40% of the overall pin image having that just like a blank wall or a solid color background or a negative space of any kind, it tends to reduce the number of repins by half or more. Multiple dominant colors result in 3 times more repins, but it's important to note that you don't want only dominant colors in your photo. So you want to balance those dominant colors out with softer colors. So you might think of like a dark green with a light coral, or vice versa, a dark green or a dark coral with a light green. Complementary colors, and have 2 or 3 dominant colors within the pen itself. Oranges and reds perform better than blues and greens. They tend to be more eye-catching, and they tend to get 2 times more repins. Does that mean don't ever use blues and greens? No, it doesn't. You can use blues and greens. That's fine. There are people out there that like blue and green better than they like orange and red. It just means that more people tend to gravitate towards those orange and reds because they're more vibrant. But anytime you can sort of put a pop of that orange or red in there, you're going to just up your chances of getting repins that much more. But if you can't and you've got blues and greens in there, don't sweat it. That doesn't mean nobody's going to repin it. 50% color saturation results in 4 times more repins than 100% saturated images. It's just sort of that middle ground, the medium, I say the word tone a lot. And it results in 10 times more repins than black and white images. As you can imagine, Pinterest being very visual, we like that color. We like that color balance, very striking images. Black and white can be very striking, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for you all. I don't imagine that you're ever going to take a picture of your furniture in black and white. And then the medium lightness or brightness gets 20 times more repins than very, very light or darker images. So you just want to be very careful with your editing and your photo taking, that you are getting clear, crisp photos. They're not washed out or blown out, and they're not shadowy. So here's some examples. I pulled some pins from you all in the group when I first joined to deliver this series. So here's a picture, and I don't want anybody to be offended. I think everybody has great pictures. The great thing for you all is that from what I've seen is you all already have a really big emphasis in the group on staging your photos and getting that staging just right and getting your photos just right, which is going to make your job so much easier when you're creating original content or repinning from a website or a shop to Pinterest, because your images really don't need much. You can use all of the images that I've seen that are staged well and edited well, could be used as is on Pinterest. So this picture right here on the left is great as is. And I'm just going to throw some examples at you, not because these pictures are bad, but just some different ways that you can repurpose or reuse these images or just edit them a little bit more to make them give them a little bit of an edge on Pinterest to make them pop a little bit more. So for this one, maybe just consider adding, or any image, you can consider adding visual interest and definition with a simple frame. Sort of helps give the edge of the pen some definition so the picture's not, especially with the white background, you sort of lose that definition around the edge. And with Pinterest right now having all their emphasis on the white space in between the pens and the boards, they sort of fade off into other pens. So to help draw attention and concentration on your pen when people are scrolling through, putting a border around it is not a bad idea. Notice here I used a coral because the furniture itself has the blues and greens in it, but I chose a coral that I pulled from that book. So I kind of got that peachy coral thing to pull in the aspects of the oranges and reds. Getting more repins on Pinterest, I tried to add a little bit more of that into the image, even though the furniture itself is blue and green. Now you be careful with that and make sure that you don't use, like if I use too dark of a frame here, it would completely take the focus away from the image itself. So there's a whole design balance there that you need to keep in mind. Always be sure to edit your pictures for brightness and contrast. I did up the brightness and contrast a little bit. You can see a little bit of a color variation between the pictures. Just be careful that you're not significantly misrepresenting your product, but I don't think this little bit of color variation is that bad. It actually made it a little bit more brighter and happy. Okay. Which people on Pinterest like. All right. So this one, the picture again is great as is. I would probably have edited it personally a little bit brighter. And I did when I did this other option over here. So another thing you can do is make your pins taller. I used Canva for all of these, and there is a Pinterest graphic template in there, and there's an infographic template in there. The infographic tends to be a little narrower and quite a bit taller. So for this one, I used the infographic template so that I could add multiple images onto the same pin. So you could consider zooming in on intricate details or showing off a different angle and put multiple images onto the same pin. Splice your images together with a thin colored line or a little text box like I did there. It's not my favorite way to do that, is because it kind of takes some focus away from the image itself when you do that. But you can if you can't get it to look right any other way. Another thing you can do is experiment with different nonlinear layouts. So you could use a grid, like one big picture on the bottom, three smaller pictures on or one big picture on the top, three smaller pictures on the bottom, whatever. Angle your pictures like they're in photo frames, those kind of things. Pull colors from your photo to use for any, I'll call them embellishments, like the graphic, the little, the text that I put there in that little text box, the graphic design elements. Pull colors from your photo to use to help the colors pop and to make it look cohesive and pulled together. You can either use the same colors or you can use complementary colors. And then always, again, edit the brightness, contrast, and saturation. All right. Again, the picture on the left is great as is, but you could also try to think of ways to repurpose your images. Again, you can have more than one pin that redirects to the same link. So for this example, the pin image incorporates the taller design. I used the infographic size again. I pulled the oranges and reds in to help grab your attention, and I incorporated one of those types of content that does really well on Pinterest, a shareable tip. I put the tip directly on the pin so that people don't have to click away to get it, because honestly, if they click through here, they're probably not going to go to a blog post that has home decor tips. They're going to go see the product. So for you all, it's a creative way to present your product in a different way. So I included a shareable tip, and I added the website URL at the bottom. I also minor edited the photo to up that brightness a little bit. You could then say in your caption, include a call to action such as save for future inspiration or click to see more like this. And then you could add the URL to that pin to redirect to your Etsy shop, your website, your Facebook page, or wherever you do your point of sales. You can also just include the product details in the caption and a find it here call to action, things like that. This image is perfect. I couldn't even think of anything to do to it. without having to go in and completely remove that watermark and move it somewhere else to show you what I mean. But as far as like editing it into another pen, I wouldn't. This picture, although it has quite a bit of background and negative space around the edges, it's textured. It's not just flat one color. It gives dimension and texture. The only thing I would recommend, if you were turning this image into a pen, you could basically just pin this image. But the only thing I would have recommended doing is putting that logo in a different location. I would ideally place logos in the corners of the image, not smack dab in the middle. Even though this is towards the bottom, it's not at the very bottom. And it's just too big to be in the middle, even at the bottom. I would put it in one of the corners along the bottom. If you were just going to use that text, my back porch, then you could, without the wreath around it, then you could put that in any corner, or you could put it along the bottom edge in the middle. You just don't want it to be obstructive. And although this isn't obstructive, it's not, really getting in the way of the pens per se. It is drawing your eye away from that table. I mean, it very much is a distraction away from the image. So you want to just sort of put it more out of the way so it's not so much of a distraction. Some image design software you can use to edit your pictures easily. I know you guys probably have lots of experience in this with the photography that I've seen coming from the group. But just, here's a list of ones that I have heard of and hear great things about or have used personally. I personally use canva.com. I also use Snapseed. The app it's a mobile app. It's not a desktop tool. I use Snapseed a lot to edit my images on the go. I really like it. It has great functionality. Snappa, Stencil, PicMonkey. PicMonkey is not my favorite, but I know a lot of people that really like it. Easily, Design Bold, and Designer. Designer.com is a lot like Canva, I believe. Easily, I think, is more for infographics. And Design Bold, I think, is also similar to Canva. And then also, if you are not using Photoshop or Illustrator, maybe you can't use it on your computer, or aren't investing in that expense or investing the money for that program, you can always use GIMP or Inkscape. Those are free alternatives. So GIMP would be like a Photoshop, and Inkscape's like an Illustrator. If you're doing any kind of design at all, you can, and about that kind of stuff, you can use those programs. Those are what I use because I can't run Photoshop because I use Linux, because I'm one of those weird people that doesn't own a Mac or a Windows computer. So GIMP and Inkscape, you can download them at those links. And they are great programs. I will caution you that they are not very intuitive, but there are great tutorials out there on the web that teach you, and videos that will teach you how to do things in those programs. So visual quality pro tips. You don't necessarily need to add a bunch of text to your pens. I know we just talked about, some examples, and I did add text to those pens and things like that. I added that home decor tip to that one to make it more shareable, but you don't necessarily need to do that. It's just a way, like I said, to repurpose your images so that you can have multiple pens of the same product, which just ups your chances of being seen and found and repinned. Some people gravitate towards certain images and pen types than others. You can always add your website, Facebook page, Etsy shop, or other URL to the image, but again, don't make it obstructive. Absolutely do not use large obstructive watermarks. You don't want a watermark going diagonal all the way up and down your pen, or horizontal or circular or any other orientation. You want the image to be as pure as possible, and the focus to be on the image or the information that you're providing on the pen. You may, however, opt to use your logo, like I said before, in an area of negative space, like in the corner, in addition to your URL. Above all, you want to use good design and photography guidelines to preserve the composition and the image integrity. Again, just make sure that focus is on the visual appeal of the image itself. All right, that brings us to the last thing, the fourth thing in attracting your target audience. So we talked about SEO last time, so that you get found. That's the first step in really attracting people. And then to get them there and to keep them there, we want the content appeal and the visual appeal. And the fourth part of that is activity. And I touched on it before that Pinterest really favors people, and in addition to SEO, getting you found in smart feed and searches, your activity level and the number of followers that you have, how well established you are, plays a big role. So the fourth thing is activity and attracting people to your account. Pinning other people's content helps bring people to your account, because it doesn't feel like you're just selling to people all the time or just constantly putting your own content out there. That's a really big turnoff to people. So you want to make sure that you're pinning other people's content on their supplementary boards. Remember the 80-20 rule. We aim for 80% other people's content, 20% our own. You don't have to be strictly 80-20. I manage accounts that's like 40% their own content. If once you get really, really big, if you have a really big account, you can up that even more. But the point is, you want to make a good balance of other people's content to yours, especially in the beginning when you're getting started. You want to pin consistently, and that's going to be more important during maintenance phase when we start talking about that. But you'll want to pin multiple pins per day, at least 10. You want to make sure that's varied content. Those 10 pins are being pinned to multiple different boards, and you want to spread that activity out over several hours. I know I've said that before, just want to touch on it again. And then lastly, you want to join relevant group boards and make sure you're contributing regularly to those group boards. This is, again, an advanced building phase technique. We will talk about it in the next module when we talk about strategies. I'll also touch on it a little bit more in a supplementary video about curating and tailoring the content of your home feed. I'll link to that so you guys have that video as well. We'll talk about group boards a little bit in there, but we're going to talk about a lot more in depth in the next module. So your challenge for this part of the series is to complete your ideal buyer profile if you haven't ever done one. I also would like you to take a product photo and just try to turn it into a pin image that maybe has a little bit of a creative twist to it, or presents the product in a different way, presents a fun little tip, or something that makes it a little bit more appealing or gives it a little bit of a boost. So try to take a product photo and get creative. Use Canva or any other editing software, photo, image manipulation software, and see what you can do with what you have. And then also fill up your 12 to 18 supplementary boards with visually appealing and quality content. If you haven't been working on that already, get going, because the sooner you get your baseline built, the sooner you can launch yourself into maintenance phase once we cover all that and really start gaining some visibility and some traffic back to your site. Some additional resources to accompany this module. I do have a couple Canva tutorials. The first link is, I can't remember which one, but one of them, I think it's the first link, is a little bit older. So Canva looks a little different, but it doesn't cover specifically making pen images, but it does cover a lot of the basic functions and things of Canva. The second one assumes you've watched the first one. So it is an update, which goes over some of the new Canva features, where things are found once they change their look, and also goes over I should demonstrate how to make a quick, easy Pinterest image using Canva. The Snapseed tutorial was done on my tablet, so it walks through all the different functions and features of Snapseed. Doesn't really teach you how to edit a photo and what a good quality edited photo looks like. but it does show you all the functions and the tools, and where they are and how to use them. And then branding with Pinterest board covers, again, is just something to reinforce, that making a cohesive board cover. It's about 20 minutes long. It's just a good supplementary resource for that if you feel like you still need some extra demonstration on that. All right, so that's it for this segment. The next segment will be, again, talking more about strategies and group boards. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to comment on the video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.